So what we're really saying is making a ruckus isn't just about making noise, right?
Right, exactly.
Hey, Laura.
Hey, Keith.
How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing well. What have we been up to this week?
We've been doing a lot of different things this week. So we went to the Packers-Chargers game last week at Lambeau Field.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a nice little 4-day stay in Green Bay.
Yeah.
In Door County. I mean, stay in Green Bay, but
yeah.
Door County. And I'm trying to think what else.
We came back and it was Thanksgiving.
Yeah, we came back. It was Thanksgiving. You weren't feeling so well.
We went to Green Bay and I got sick again.
Yeah.
Just a really bad cold. But yeah, that's what I do, I guess.
Guess so. We'll get a chance to try it again here.
Yeah. So, but yeah, we had a nice trip with my parents. They came with. And the Airbnb was awesome.
Oh my goodness.
The game room. I forgot that you told me there was a game room.
Oh, yeah. Child 2. He was in love with the game room. It was like throwback to what? Like the 70s, 80s?
Yeah. I mean, it had a pool table. It had like kind of a new video pinball, Star Wars video pinball. It had like an arcade machine that had like a thumb drive that had like a million games on it. And then his favorite thing was
the axe throwing, safe axe throwing.
Yeah. It was like, plastic, stuck in like plastic fibers or whatever, right?
He got
like,
the nickname Axeman.
Yeah.
He's really, and there's a foosball table. Did you say that too?
Oh no, yeah, there was a foosball table too.
And like a little popcorn making cart.
Yep.
I mean, it was
a popcorn maker, yeah.
Everything.
That was good too. That was a good popcorn. You did a good
that was a throwback to my time of working with student clubs.
Yeah.
You make popcorn, students will come and check it out.
Yeah. So we had, like a nice relaxing weekend in Green Bay. Came back, and then you had Thanksgiving with your family, and I stayed home because I didn't want to get anybody sick.
I know. You've been
I'm a little cruddy still.
Yeah. So he's been sick. He hasn't given it to me yet, so that's good.
I slept in the studio.
Yeah.
With basically a pool floaty is what I was joking about it. I'm like, it's like sleeping on a raft for the pool. I figured it out the second night. I just needed a bunch of extra pillows. Wasn't the most comfortable. I probably should have just slept on pillows on the floor.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was a busy week, but what are we going to talk about today?
So we were on the way home from the Packer game.
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually at the Packer game. Let me back up.
Well, we noticed some stuff.
We noticed some stuff at the Packer game, and
we talked about it.
We talked about it
on the way home. Right?
Yeah. And we had never, so we've been to several games at Lambeau. We go to a few games a year, but we've never noticed this prompt. So often on the screen, right? They say, get louder.
Like the Jumbotron, yeah.
Yeah, be quiet. They're working.
This was a new thing. Like
it was.
We've never seen it before.
No. And so the words were up there and it says, make a ruckus.
Yeah. And we both like smiled at each other.
We did.
We like looked at each other and smiled because that's something that Seth says.
Yeah.
Seth Godin says it in almost every book. I swear. I don't know when he started, but it's every time. And any book I've listened to recently, he's talking about, go make a ruckus. It's kind of like his sign off in a way, I think, is just a reminder to people to like go and do stuff,
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was on the big Jumbotron for the Packers, right?
And we thought, maybe we could talk about what making a ruckus means to us. Right. In our creative work or in our lives in general. It doesn't have to be creative work.
You say creative work and I'm like, it's all creative. Which is, I mean, I'm glad that's how I think of it, because that's really what like the human touch is like you bring your creativity to whatever work you're doing. But I think, so what spurred us to talk about it more was we saw some different types of ruckus going on around us.
We did.
At the game.
And it actually made us question, because in the Make a Ruckus, the video, calling us Make a Ruckus was really about cheer, get loud, be excited, cheer them on, go for it, right?
Yep.
But it was juxtaposed against these other kind of what I think would be a ruckus, but weren't necessarily so conducive. Right. To the environment. So I don't know. Do you want to talk about one of them and I'll talk about one of them?
Sure.
You pick. There's two examples.
So what I was going to start with was people started doing the wave. the whole point of making a ruckus, when they put that up, that's when we were on defense. They want us to be loud because they want us to disrupt the offense.
Right. Well, and to be fired up, right?
Yeah. And when our team is on offense, we want to be quiet so that they can all get the play to each other and they don't get offsides or false starts and stuff like that.
Yes.
It's just this thing that, they try to get people to know. So people started doing the wave. And I remember a couple years ago too, like they made a point of saying like, we don't need people doing the wave when we're on offense and we're down by however many points.
I will say though, I think to be fair though, I think the crowd started the wave when we were on like a 2-minute TV break. So like it was starting and kind of picking up momentum, I think, while we were waiting in like a lull.
So what I'm talking about here is like situational awareness kind of thing.
Right.
That's and that's kind of like we were talking about that on the car ride. And so that, I mean, it was a ruckus, and the thing is like, that's like a connection and like a community thing, and people feel like part of a whole, right? Like you feel part of this large, like 70,000 people, and you're all in sync and you're all waiting your turn for your turn to step up and do your thing, like literally, right? And it wasn't the right time. Because
any longer, right?
Yeah, because the announcer came over and he's like, really? The wave right now?
It was actually a Packer, because it was like a pre-recorded football player that was like, really guys, the wave?
Yeah.
Now?
Oh, okay. And so that was interesting. And then there was another thing.
Yeah. Can I talk about it?
Yeah.
So the other ruckus that we noticed, it was right away at the beginning.
On the first play of the game. And the second play.
And the second play.
And the third,
and the third
fourth, and fifth, yeah.
So we were sitting fairly far up in the stadium, and everyone gets really excited at the beginning of a game. So you're standing up, you're cheering, you're watching the plays. Everyone's getting used to who's around them and all that. Mm-hmm. And there was this gentleman in front of us. And
to the side a little.
To the side, yeah, not like directly in front, but just to the side of us a little bit. And after about the first play or second play, was it the first play?
The first play of the game.
And he yells at the top of his lungs, down in front, sit down,
telling everybody to sit down,
really loud. And it wasn't just two people standing up in front of him. It was probably about 20 to 30 rows of people.
The entire crowd
standing up in front of him. Yeah. And I understand his frustration, because not everyone can stand, right? Yeah. Or comfortably stand for long periods of time. Or if you have small children with you, even if people aren't standing, it's really hard to see over sometimes. And so you can't see the game, right?
He was bugging the family in front of him because the 5-year-old was standing on the bench like a little later on.
Yeah.
And the kid wasn't even past his dad's head by more than like a quarter of an inch.
No.
And he's like, you really can't see over his head?
Yeah. So anyway, he was a little grouchy is kind of how I would characterize him. But he kept, and I've seen people say down in front, sit down to the crowd, maybe once or maybe twice. But he didn't say it once. He didn't say it twice. He said it about 5 to 8 times. And I remember, Keith, you turned around to kind of the people that were near us, because we were all giving him a little bit of side eye, like, what is going on? Somebody stole your donut this morning or something. I don't know. Like, there was just grumpiness happening. I don't know. He just seemed sour. And you're like, well, that's going to be fun to listen to this whole time. This whole game. Everyone's like, right? And it was just very, very awkward. Mm-hmm. And so that was a ruckus, right? Or was it a ruckus?
Well, he was making a ruckus.
He was making his own ruckus.
We're kind of drawing this out a little bit, I feel like. But
I think, to really understand the situation and like and
that's why we were thinking about it, because we're like, what did he think he was enrolling in going to a Packers game?
Sure.
That's where my head was. Because I'm not really mad at him. I actually just kind of feel bad for him, because he was so crabby. It's like, why are you here? Like, it's not like you invited all these people to your living room and we're being rude. You're in a community where, like, some places, like some concerts, it's bad etiquette to sit. Like at a rock show, they're like, don't sit. Like, you got to, match the energy, right? So that was kind of what I was thinking of. It was really interesting to me to think of, like, where and when do you make a ruckus? How do you do it? How do you show up? And it's, that situational awareness is, because it's something that I want to get better at. And so seeing how he was showing up and just kind of unaware of nobody else is on the same wavelength as you, pun intended, because we were talking about the wave earlier. But, but yeah, like I look at it making a ruckus from like my perspective. I need to be a little more ambitious, and I'm still working at that. Of when I talk about how I need to get going, like you're like, I always call you like, you're my like instigator, you're my initiator.
Sure.
And I'm always like sitting back, right? So what I mean is like, I want to step up and make a ruckus a little more often.
Okay. So I want to break this down a little bit, if you're okay with that. So making a ruckus, because we've talked about things that you could classify or talk about as a ruckus. And we talked about that they're viewed differently, right? Some in a good, maybe positive way, as far as like helping you get to the goal. Some as maybe not being as, I don't know if appropriate for the situation is, but just not as useful, maybe in attaining what you're trying to do. So if you think about what it means to make a ruckus to you, what does that look like? When have you felt like you've made a ruckus in the past in a positive way?
I mean, most often when I show up and I use my voice to either ask a question or point out something that I've noticed, and not withholding, like actually showing up and saying something, whether it's to a group of friends or to somebody one-on-one. That's like how I do it in my head. It even like think of like in class when the teacher asks a question and nobody raises their hand to like respond. I was the one that would raise his hand, and I'd be like, I'm here to participate. I'm enrolled. Like, I'm here for this. That's how I've done it. Now, whereas when we saw it on the video board and we're both like, oh, Seth says that a lot. I think what it means in that context is you starting and doing and trying to make a change, right? And I think part of that is using your voice and speaking up and realizing, kind of like with the poke the box, it's like if you withhold, you're actually stealing from other people. And so that's kind of what I think of as making a ruckus, is actually showing up and like generously sharing and being part of, the situation or what's going on where you're at.
I like that.
Yeah. What do you think? Like, now, because you asked me all these great questions, and what are you thinking about it?
Well, I like the perspective you have. I really like that. It's not exactly how I think about it, but I haven't engaged as much with Seth's work before. I mean, I have, of course I have, but not as deeply is maybe what I would say.
Yeah.
When I think about making a ruckus, I think more about how do I, and maybe it is show up and share my voice, but how is it that I am showing up and saying my truth in a way that can be heard?
Yeah.
And so I'm going to digress a little bit here. So this time of year, as you know, Keith, I really enjoy myself watching. What kind of movies do I like to watch this time of year?
Hallmark Christmas movies.
Hallmark Christmas movies, Netflix Christmas movies, Ion Original Christmas movies. Christmas movies. For some reason, the last 2 or 3 years, I didn't think I would ever be watching Hallmark Christmas movies. And alas, here I am. So this morning, I was watching Christmas Wedding Planner.
That sounds like one I set to record for you off a Hallmark or something.
Very possible. I wanted to watch something new. I'll watch all my tried and trues over the next several weeks, but I wanted to watch something new. So I pulled out Christmas Wedding Planner, and it's a story of a girl who is planning her first big wedding at Christmas time. Whoa, right? Reflects the title. So she's planning, and as she's going along, when she needs to be brave, she takes a deep breath and she goes, I am a fierce warrior. And then she goes up and says what it is she needs to say. And I feel like that in some ways is making a ruckus. I know it's bigger than that, but I do think on some level it's that taking a deep breath and being like, okay, I need to say my truth right now. To your point, the poke the box, right? I need to share what it is that is my perspective right now, even if it's uncomfortable.
Oh, I totally agree with that. That's what I meant with what I was saying, because I'm not the first one with their hand up on purpose. It's just that sometimes nobody else raises their hand, and then I do that calculation of, okay, it's okay. I can speak up. Like, I paid for the credits for this class, or I'm enrolled, like I have every right to say the same thing, right? And I'm like, yep. And then, so it's not like obviously, if anyone's listened to this, I'm not like the most confident person, but I work through that. And I kind of push through that a little faster than some people maybe, but whatever. Let's get back to what you were saying.
So what I was saying is just around making a ruckus. I think that there's more beyond what I'm saying it is, especially in the creative process. So if I'm thinking
in your work, let's talk about right? It doesn't have to be a creative process. It can be.
I want to talk about my creative work.
Oh, okay.
If that's okay.
I'm just saying it doesn't have to be limited to that. I thought you were.
No, so making a ruckus, something that I think is empowering and also scary at the same time. Like, I think making a ruckus can be empowering and scary.
Yeah.
Right?
It probably wouldn't be as empowering if it wasn't a little scary.
Right. And so I keep going back to the project that I'm trying to do. And I shouldn't say I'm trying, because that means that I'm not doing anything. Okay. It's an excuse for when I use the words I'm trying to.
You're in the process.
I'm in the process.
And it's okay that it's slower than you like fast-paced movement.
Yeah, I do. And well, honestly, even, okay. So I want making a ruckus in that situation.
We're saying making a ruckus a lot.
I know. So I think that one thing that would help me move things forward is to think about, how do I push myself outside of my comfort zone more than I'm doing currently? How do I make progress when I have all the excuses in the world as to why I'm not making progress? Like, look, so today we put up the Christmas tree, right? Decorated it. And putting up the Christmas tree means that all of our little workout station has to move.
Right.
So our weights have to go over on this part of the basement.
It doesn't have to move. You want it to move.
I want the tree in a specific spot. So that is a little on me. So our free weights and our kettlebells go like over here. And then the rowing machine has to like go somewhere. And so does it go by the treadmill, or should we put it in my office? I'm like, well, I'll just put it in my office. And I spent, and I don't even think you know this because we haven't talked about it, but I spent quite a lot of time rearranging where that rowing machine was going to be. Because no matter where I put it in my office, it was going to disrupt my quote unquote perfect setup to make progress on something I'm not making progress on anyway.
Where's the rowing machine?
So it's in front of my big whiteboard that has all of my ideas and my project mapping on it. And grant you, the rowing machine folds up, it rolls. It's not like it's an 800-pound something, but I put it there. I'm like, well, guess I'm not going to make any progress on that until January. And I'm like, what are you thinking?
You're finding excuses.
I am.
That's what that is.
And so for that to come out, at least now I recognize it. Like, there was a while ago, I didn't even recognize that would have been an excuse, but I'm like, well, I'm going to put this rowing machine in front of the whiteboard, and therefore my eyeballs can't see it. And so therefore, which is not true. A rowing machine is how close to the ground? Like, really close to the ground. What? It's not like this elevated, like, rowing machine that's...
If it's all laid down how it's supposed to be to use, it's not more than 2 feet high.
No, it's not. But it made me feel a little like I don't have the fight to have a ruckus. Does that make sense? Like, I don't have...
Yeah, that's what I was talking about earlier.
I don't have the ruckus within me to go after what I say I supposedly want to pursue.
I was writing about that earlier today, and you don't know.
I don't.
But yeah, that's what I was literally in my daily
You're journaling
post.
about that?
Yeah.
Or yeah.
In my daily posts in public. I'm like, oh, these are the things I want to be doing. These are the things I say I want to be doing. I need to stop saying I'm going to do them and start doing them and making room in my schedule to do these things, because that's going to make my daily practice better. I need to incorporate all these things. And what I was saying earlier about like my ambition, that's what I'm hearing from you is you're like, where's that fire? Where's that ambition? Or some people might say like how that's where like you need to use your ego, right? To like help you push forward or push through that resistance, that uncomfortableness of taking that next step. I mean, everyone listening right now is like, we don't even know what she's talking about. Nobody knows what your project is.
That's because I'm too scared to talk about it.
Right. So you're too afraid to talk about it. Why do you think you have made no progress? You know, that's not a coincidence.
Ooh, mic drop key.
Don't drop the mic.
I won't drop the mic. Oh, yeah. You know, and I think part of it is
when we get to 1,000 subs, Laura will unveil her project. I'm just kidding.
What subs?
Subscribers.
Oh, I was like, what are you talking about?
That's how much we don't care about that. It's like, you don't even know what a sub is.
I'm like, is this like cold cut combo or tuna fish? Like, what are we doing?
No.
Like, oh gosh, I thought you were talking Subway. Gotcha.
That's a joke. All right. So yeah, you need to commit, right?
Yeah. So is it committing or is it making a ruckus? Or am I just using that as a delay
You're
tactic
using
to
semantics
Oh.
to avoid committing or holding yourself accountable or letting yourself off the hook. All these things that we hear about, right? That we can like write down on Post-its to remind us to like step by step, just little steps, right? That's like what you tell me. You tell me this all the time.
But I feel like, I think there is this part of me too, though. And I know we talk about this a lot on the podcast.
What?
Like trying to get started, trying to keep momentum, trying to keep going, trying to silence or mitigate the voices of criticism and the hate, either internal, self-generated or from
external,
others. But there's part of me that I think I do feel like I want to move forward with my project, and at the same time I have that guy, right? Like one row down saying, sit down, not so fast.
Right.
Do it this specific way. And it's and I think too, that idea of even like, it's not a right time to make a ruckus right now. I'm too busy. I don't have time. I got plenty going on. Why would I do the wave right now when maybe now is the time for me just to be quiet, take it in, listen, soak it up.
That's something that we were kind of talking about on the car ride, right? Like,
how do I know now's the time to make a ruckus? Or how do I know now is a time to wait and prepare for the ruckus to be made?
So I don't think waiting for the right moment, that is a stall tactic. That's resistance. And the other thing that you were saying, it sounds like you need reassurance, which there's never enough of. That's something Seth says. And it's like, oh, snap. Like once you start needing that reassurance, you're always going to kind of need it, right? So like obviously we want it. I want it. But I think it's being okay with it not being perfect, because that's what I was hearing too, is like, it's not the right time, or how do I do it right? That was starting to creep up. It's not even
necessarily, I don't know if it's necessarily that. I think it's more of a, do I know enough what it is I want to do? Is it scoped out enough for me to even start working towards it? But I guess
yes,
the question back at myself is, if you don't start working towards it, how are you going to get clear on what it is?
Yeah.
Right?
There's another thing around that, which is, like, I think Seth says this. He's like, okay, great. You know what you want to do. Now go do it, and then realize you're not doing what you thought you were trying to do. And then keep going and start again. And we're just kind of circle talking around this a bunch, but it's because it's real, right? It's the resistance. It's scary to like kind of take that leap, but that's, the other thing too is like, we think of it as such a big leap when what I realize I got to tell my brain is like, it's a calculated risk that I'm really not in danger of anything if it doesn't work. And the other thing is like, can you be patient enough to realize like, I'm going to make slow progress? Because if you're saying it doesn't feel like the right time to start, it is. It's just you don't think you can do it all so fast. Like you just got to realize like there's long-term view, versus it's not good unless I can bang it out in 2 weeks. It's like, well, no, like take your time and do whatever you can. Keep working towards the goal, right? Like we've been talking about, like all it takes is a goal, right? Like that book,
right?
Put that on again, or
I
don't know. So easy for me to say it to you.
Yeah, I'm pausing, right? Because I'm thinking and I'm contemplating, because I feel like I make a ruckus quite a bit.
Yeah.
In other parts of my life.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, you get to make a ruckus in work, right? In your work?
My work, or even at home, or
well, yeah. I wasn't gonna go there, but yeah.
No, but it is one of those things. Like today, I got up and we often have coffee, right? And talk about our day. And I'm like, okay, so today I want to see my sister off and her family because they're heading back to Seattle. I want to put up the Christmas tree and decorate it and put all our Christmas stuff out. I want to put away all my canning things, and it has to get nested back into deeper storage. I want to do a podcast episode with you. I want to make sure we watch the Chargers game with Child One because that's his team. And so I have this huge long list, but that's not necessary. It feels like I'm making a ruckus for the day where I'm like, let's go. We got this. We're doing it all.
Yeah. That's what you do. You do that.
That is like my daily, even like, when was it yesterday? We went to a Christmas tree farm. We picked up the tree wreaths. Then we went shopping. My sister, mom, and I went shopping to some small businesses in town. And then I came home for a few hours. I threw up all of our Christmas lights outside. We watched a couple episodes of Shoresy. And then I went back over to hang out. And, we played some games. And I don't stand still very well.
Well.
And I can get a lot done, but I'm just stuck. I feel so stuck. And I want to make a ruckus with it, but there's something that's just, I feel like I'm making it too precious.
Yeah. Oh, I bet.
Because
we've talked about that, right?
Yeah, we have.
Yeah.
We have. I feel like I'm making it so darn precious that
you don't want it to like disintegrate when it sees the light of day kind of thing.
Right. Or I just don't even know where to go. Like it would be easier. Like one thing I've thought, and I haven't shared this with you. Mm-hmm. Should I not?
No, I'm like, oh.
No, but it was even that I was thinking, I'm like, one thing I love to do is puzzles. I love puzzling. I always have loved puzzling.
Yeah.
Puzzling,
we all know.
I know. It is so flipping amazing.
Yep.
And I was like, maybe that's what I do. Maybe it's not this other thing that maybe I create like an online puzzling community. Maybe I create like a puzzle swap. I'm sure it's already out there, but like some cool puzzle group. Like, wouldn't that fill my cup?
Okay. Go do it.
Oh.
What was that? Overwhelming?
Yes, overwhelming.
Okay.
Overwhelming.
Why? I thought you loved puzzling.
I do love puzzling.
So why don't you make an online community focused on puzzling?
Because what would I call it?
Puzzling. No G on the end, just
puzzling.
Apostrophe. Doesn't matter. Like that's another thing.
Puzzling in Wisco.
Sure.
Oh goodness.
Your first response to my question was like a limiting belief. Yeah. So
it was ugh.
So I can see why you're like, oh, I'm not ready to move forward.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, I can tell.
So how do you make a ruckus with something that you're passionate about, that you really want to do or logically want to do?
I don't know. Is it a hobby? Maybe it just needs, like, people can have hobbies.
That's true.
Right?
They don't have to be a project.
Or it doesn't have to be a project that is something that you're going to rely on it for income. Like when people are talking about like what they're working on in their projects, it's, you're thinking of them making a startup or a online community so that it can generate revenue so that that can be your job, right? Like, if that's what you want, then is that going to ruin something that's a passion of yours? Is it better to have that passion stay a hobby?
Isn't that interesting?
I'm not saying yes or no. I'm just saying it's something to think about.
So that's really interesting because I feel like I'm probably putting a lot of pressure on myself that whatever I do or whatever I create potentially could be like a side hustle.
Yeah.
I never even really thought about just doing it for the pure enjoyment because I've never done side hustle. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right. Okay.
I'm always trying to figure out what is my long-term plan to do something that's fulfilling me. But like one of my future, like my superpowers is to be incredibly future focused.
Yeah.
Right? So
why are you denying yourself that superpower?
Of being future focused?
Yeah. You're denying a vision you're having for your future by not working on it.
I think I'm denying myself it because I don't fully know what my next step is going to be. And
I suppose that's hard for you.
It's really hard. It is really hard for me not knowing because
well, you can do plan B while you have your current plan in place.
I know. I mean, and that's what a lot of people say, right? Is that
well, some people don't realize it. Some people are like, it's all or nothing. I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to go follow this dream passion.
Oh, no.
And it's like, okay,
But that's making a ruckus, right?
Sure.
Jumping with both feet.
Yeah, it's also irresponsible, and it depends on what are your circumstances.
Right.
You have kids,
it depends on
family,
the risk tolerance and your ability to take those risks.
Yeah. I didn't mean to interrupt there. But another thing that Seth says is if you start something new, when you start something new, right?
Yeah.
It's not going to be easy. And he'll say, who said it was supposed to be easy? If you're going to do what you are seeking to do, the change that you're looking to make, it's a pretty magical thing. And so why wouldn't it be hard? Because what you're going to get in return for doing that significant work, it's not supposed to be easy. Because it's going to be that much more rewarding, kind of thing. And so I don't mean to diminish how hard it feels when you're in the dip, kind of, right? Like when you're in the thick of it, because I've been there. In my situation, I've been in spots where I'm like, I don't see how I'm going to get out of this, and this is just where I'm going to be, right? Like, I'm not trying to project that on you. I'm just saying that's what it's making me think of and feel is when I felt like kind of no hope of,
Yeah. So I guess the thing I'm contemplating is I'm really good. So I'm really good at making a ruckus from a personal standpoint. I'm really good at going after hobbies, figuring out how to do things I've never done before.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Show up, bring people along, being like, come on, let's go. Let's jump into the lake.
Yeah.
Might be cold, but we can do it, whatever. But again, that I'm pausing because that I just feel this real heaviness, I think, maybe around my creative work. And so I'm trying to figure out like the thing in my head right now, what I'm thinking is I know I'm like an excuse machine, right? I don't have time.
That's the script running through your head right now?
I don't have time. Who wants to engage on women leadership topics anyway?
A lot of women.
I know. What would I call what I'm trying to do? Would I have a website? Would it be this? Would it be that?
These are all things that can be changed.
I mean, I know everything's figure outable.
Yeah.
Right?
So why are you letting that hold you back? Like, you don't need to keep listing off things.
Yeah.
It's very apparent what you're feeling and that heaviness. And
so I think maybe this is what it is. I think the thing that's holding me back right now is I'm trying to start and maintain habits of showing up for certain things consistently.
Yeah.
So our podcast, we release every Thursday, and it's interesting because that takes some planning to make sure that we can sit down and have good conversation and put in the work so it's thoughtful, so you have time to edit it, right?
Yeah. Our aim is to have good content.
Yes. Our aim is, you're right. Sometimes we circle talk and meander.
It's not up to us, but we're trying. People. We're trying.
The other thing is just around like my morning routine and my, so I'm trying not to make sudden movements. Like I feel like, okay, so you didn't grow up with dogs, right?
I mean, there were dogs in the neighborhood, but like I didn't have a dog.
Okay. So I grew up with dogs and cats. I know you know that. And so just bear with me for a second. I had a dog named Tivoli growing up, and she was just a really fun dog, and she was Cocker Spaniel, would run around the neighborhood. If she could get out or sneak out of our fence or anything, she was gonna go and just like tear around the neighborhood. Loved it. For anybody that has a dog or had a dog, like where the dog would just like run around, you'd sneak up to her very slowly when she was out and you had to catch her to put her back on the leash, right, and get her home. You'd sneak up very, very slowly, no sudden movements, very small changes. You'd show her a treat in your hand, and then she would slowly come towards you. And about 8 times out of 10, she would just look at you, pivot, and just run off. And like you didn't succeed, right? And so I'm saying all of this because I have a pretty solid morning routine. We've talked about my morning routine, right? I get up, I make coffee, I journal. I have been working to reincorporate movement, and I make my plan for the day, and I try and do some sort of self-growth, right? Reading or something, podcast, something. So that is really good. But I feel like adding one more thing into it, it's just like Tivoli, like my dog, right? Like if I was to add 10 minutes or 15 minutes of journaling or ideating around my projects or my ideas, like I feel like I would kind of start to incorporate it, but then maybe my whole morning routine would fall apart and it would just like run away and cruise around the neighborhood. I know it's not practical, but do you know what I'm saying? Like I feel like one small tweak, movement, or change to it is going to completely end up in me not achieving my goal and actually being further away from attaining it.
What goal?
My goal of having a solid morning routine that helps me with my well-being.
Okay. Do you have that right now?
Yeah, I feel like I have several components. I do want to add more movement back in, shifting from summer to now. I need to incorporate movement in different ways.
Okay.
Getting back inside.
So what's the point of having the morning routine?
The point of the morning routine is to help center me, to help me focus on my well-being, stress management, and self-growth development before I give my time to other people for the day.
And what is the point of this project that you want to be working on?
The point of the project is to really create a community that is going to support other women leaders or other women around topics that we struggle with in particular, to help add value to whatever projects or leadership roles they're taking on. And so, I mean, the goal of it isn't to just create a community so I can hang out with people. Like the goal of it is to create and add value to other people's lives. To
create change. Creates ripples of change, right?
Yeah.
It's a community. It's there to support people in the community, right?
Right. I mean, and I think I have this, I also have this fear. If I don't have enough time right now to even think through what could this be called, would I even have the time to show up generously in the community and in the space to help support other women, right?
Right.
And
I understand
Yeah.
That's what's happening in your brain right now. And there's way too much emphasis on what to call it. And I get it. I see that. It gets people hung up and making no progress forever. And it's not that important, but it feels really important.
But I think the reason it feels important to me right now is the small... Your baby. Well, no. It's because I have like articles I've been trying to write, right? Like blog posts, things like that. Mm-hmm. But where do I put them? Right? To what end are they for?
Right. Okay. So you and we could take 30 minutes and we could find like 5 to 10 really good things to call your project like later. Right. And that sounds like fun to me. I like words. And I like hanging out with you.
Oh. I like hanging out with you too.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Where I was trying to go was, this morning routine.
Yep.
That is designed to support you in doing the things that you want to do.
Correct.
And so how important is this project to you? And if it's important enough, the morning routine should be able to support that. Do you know what I mean? It's a choice. Like you have to make a choice. Like we were talking about commitment. Like it literally is. You make the decision once and then you don't have to make it again because you committed to it.
Right.
I'm totally channeling Seth right now. I'm pretty sure. Like I'm sure he said that and I've heard him say it so many times. And it's so much easier to say it to somebody else.
Yeah.
Because you're saying like, I can't add this into my morning routine. It's like, well,
I'm just worried the whole House of Cards is going to fall.
Why does it have to be part of the morning routine? The morning routine is supposed to set you up to do things later in the day. Why can't your project? It's just another thing to work on. It's another thing on your to-do list later. Like I'd rather you worked on that than us watch a show.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to spend as much time with you as possible, but it's the same thing that we've talked about before. It's like, if I'm preventing you from doing something that's going to make you happy, that would devastate me to find that out, right?
Yeah.
Like you told that to me years ago where you're like, we do not want to be an excuse for you to not do what's going to make you happy.
Right.
And that really shifted my perspective because I have a hard time when I take time for me, I feel selfish.
Right.
When I take time to work on things, or I take the time and I'm slower and I don't get as much accomplished as like you would if you were doing your stuff, I compare, right? And then I kind of pile on myself a little bit. So I feel like you're going down that path a little bit of I'm not going to start because I don't know if I have time. It's like we said it before, we have time, but it doesn't have to be 4-hour chunks.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Again, I'm saying it. It's easy for me to say it, right?
Yeah. You're right. And I think the thing that so I keep trying to think back to what our topic is for today. And there's a part of me that says small progress isn't enough, that's not a ruckus, that isn't big enough to make the change that you ultimately want to make. And at the same time, though, what I do want to say is I know that's crap.
Yeah.
Like I know. Because
drip, 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 all of a sudden you have an ocean.
Exactly. Or this is just a small example. What was it? On Friday, I woke up, I made myself coffee. I was getting ready for my morning routine. I'm like, you know what? You are going to do your weightlifting circuit, focus on legs. Like you're going to have leg day today, right? And my head was like, no, you aren't going to do that. It's not enough. It's only 3 circuits of 3 different things, like, no, you're not. No. And somehow I found the power within me to say, I know you don't want to do this. And you know what? We're going to do it anyway. And so maybe I just need to continue to get the reps in of practicing that of, I know right now you don't want to do this because you don't think it's enough, but you're going to do it anyway. I mean, that's probably a powerful phrase that I should spend the next couple weeks really working on. Right? I mean, do you think that phrase in itself somewhat helped? I think that would help me I think that's take a whole bunch of little whispers and make them into a roar, right?
That sounds a lot like I take Seth's, to me, I make it a mantra, the people like us do things like this.
Yeah.
That's what that sounds a lot like that. And I think you should say what you said there. Like Because, I mean, that's just a different way of saying it.
Like, I know you don't feel like doing this right now, but we're going to do it anyway.
Shady Laura doesn't feel like doing it.
Shady Laura, no.
But Laura
Shady
is saying,
Laura does
we're
not.
doing this.
Yeah.
I'm doing this, and I guess you're coming along, and you can just be quiet, you know?
Or you can whine the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say, I mean, it is that feeling of once you start that first set, right?
The action.
The first circuit.
The action leads to more motivation,
yep.
Right?
I mean, how many times have, I'll use myself, how many times have I said, you know what? You're just going to go out and you have committed to a 10-minute walk. And then I'm gone for a half hour and I've done like a walk run or.
Yeah, and you come back and you're like, you got a little glow on you. Like you tell it lifted your, like just your whole mood. Or like, even like when you drag me out to go on a walk, I'm just like, ugh.
You did air quotes, everyone.
Yeah. And then it's like, oh, this is great. And then it starts lightning and then you're like, we got to run home. And I'm like, ah.
Yeah, I don't really check the weather very often,
no.
do I? No, I'm pretty bad at that. Okay. So.
You just got to lean in and push through.
And sometimes that ruckus doesn't have to be loud and yelling, right?
You need, have the persistence and the consistency that will make a louder ruckus later, right?
Yeah. All the small things add up to bigger things.
Yeah.
You're saying drip, drip, drip.
Yeah.
Right.
Step by step. That's a Seth thing too, like the drip, drip, drip. Like he says a lot. I rip Seth off all the time.
No, but he inspires you.
I incorporate it. Yeah. Really
you live it. You live it.
Mm. Start throwing him on Audible. Any of his books, anytime, you'll get it too.
Yeah. So, have there been any things that we haven't talked about around this topic that I feel like I feel like we went in a direction I didn't really anticipate going. I wasn't planning on talking about.
I think where we went is better for most people, and they get to see into something that's real. Right. You know, not that we ever don't try to, we know, it's not like we don't show up real. It's just.
Maybe in a future episode, I'll be talking about how the drip, 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 or the showing up when I didn't want to and doing it anyway, how that is starting to come together.
Yeah. I mean.
And make a difference, right?
Yeah. There's a bunch of things that you listed off that you're hesitant about that I can help you with.
You're a great partner.
Are you?
No.
Should we wrap it up?
I think so. We often talk about something that we've been listening to or consuming, reading, and I want to check in with you if there's anything that you would like to share with folks.
I started rewatching Shoresy on Hulu. It's a spinoff of Letterkenny. I was rewatching the first season because I saw the second season came out. I don't know when it did, but I hadn't seen it. And I don't know what made me think to check. It was probably just, I was like, it's winter. I'm like, I want to watch something funny. If you're into kind of dry, I feel like, have we talked about this before?
I don't know if we've talked about Shoresy.
Okay. It's not something to have on with the kids around, but it's funny. It's about hockey. I know it's kind of a specific thing, but it's comedy and I like it. And I'm looking forward to watching the second season and try to get some movement in. I'm telling myself that. I recommend movement. You brought it up, so now I'm thinking of it. I haven't been getting enough movement in. And yeah, that's about it for me. What about you?
So I would recommend any Hallmark Christmas movie at this point. I find them to be great. They give you a good cry or giggle. And they're really predictable, so you can sometimes multitask and just
puzzle.
Exactly. You can puzzle. The other thing, don't know if I've recommended this before, but I really like the podcast from Harvard Business Review, Coaching Real Leaders with Mariel Wilkins. So I've been listening to that, and one of the most recent episodes from November was about should I continue to climb the corporate ladder? And so maybe you're hearing some of that podcast come out in me as well of, am I capable of climbing the corporate ladder and eventually aspiring to become a college president if I'm given the opportunity? Of course. Is that something that I'm currently thinking is my future path? Possibly, possibly not. So it was a interesting podcast to consume and just really soak in and think about, maybe as I'm thinking about the future, what might next steps be in the next 5 or 10 years.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks, everybody.
See you next time.
Bye.
Oh my goodness gracious.